Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network, national talk show host, joins us. Good to see that big smile. Zach Gelb joins us on 365 Sports. So, Zach, we have breaking news. You convinced Matt Rule not to ever do another segment with us because I had never been to Lincoln. We are going next week. Craig, Jennifer, Daniel, and I are headed to Lincoln next Friday to go watch them against Illinois.
So I bullied you pretty much.
Yeah, no, you did. You shamed me. You shamed me.
Okay, I have a recommendation. You have to go to Casa Bovita, which is the steakhouse out there.
Okay.
Matt will hook it up and we'll get your reservation because it's not easy to get to. And then when you're at the stadium, I know that Smokey, you're a little bit older, so I don't know how you are with the taking photos when you're in the stands. I need a photo of a runza because a runza is one of the greatest things I've ever had for football drunk food.
What is an Arunza? I've seen Nebraska fans or those who cover the games actually bring that up. What actually is it?
There's like just beef inside of it, and there's like bread. Like it kind of tastes like a hot pocket. So it's nothing like crazy. It's not bougie, but I had a few runzas when I was out there.
All right. There we go.
Yeah, I think I heard Tim Waltz talking about it, and because he's from Nebraska, and I was like, I don't know what that is at all. Your thoughts on Nebraska's absolute utter domination of Colorado and where this puts Coach Prime and his tenure there. It makes this whole thing seem a lot weirder that they are not any better than they were last year after all change of the roster and everything. And Nebraska really stuck it to them.
Yeah, so Matt Rule is building a team, and I like Coach Prime, but Deion has not built a team there. They have individuals with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, who are great. You have a few other good players, but they have not built a team, and they are building a program based off getting a ton of attention, where Nebraska is building a team that's going to be really damn good this year. So that was my takeaway. I thought Nebraska was going to win the game, but I thought this was going to be a fun back and forth game where Nebraska would pull away late. That game was over at halftime. Nebraska didn't even need to show up in the second half. And I just had Josh Pate on my show today. Does a great job for CBS covering college football. We know the #1 college football podcast. And he doesn't think Deion's going to be back at Colorado. It's not because Colorado is going to fire him, but he thinks there's a chance that Deion leaves at the end of the year because of the lack of team he's built. And then he even threw out a theory that because Arkansas is going to open up, Gus Malzahn goes back to the SEC, takes the Arkansas job, and then you could view a spot like UCF being a perfect landing spot for Coach Prime to then bolt to.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of speculation right now on whether this is the last run or not, these last 10 games for Deion. It's going to be very, very interesting. Now, I saw where you had the coach from Northern Illinois on your show. What an upset that was. We talked to him as well, and they're obviously getting their flowers, and deservedly so. What'd you make of that upset last week, and what that means for the Irish as much as anything?
Yeah, I didn't love Notre Dame in terms of like doing damage in the college football playoff this year. I thought they would just get in because that's the system now with the 12-team format where there's going to be a lot of teams that we're praising at the end of the year, but they've really just been the same team that they've been for the last few years. It's just more invites are now going to the party. I look back, and I may have said it with you guys last week, after the A&M game, I thought that was more of an indictment on A&M and A&M being overrated heading into this season rather than this was some spectacular great victory for Notre Dame, which was a good victory, but I didn't walk away from that game being thoroughly impressed with the Fighting Irish. Now, with that being said, I would have never predicted in a million years that they would have lost to NIU or that game would have even been a contest, but it's a brutal look for Marcus Freeman, who lost to Marshall in year one. You lose to Marshall in year one, okay, bad losses happen in year one for a head coach when you're trying to build your own style on a program that's been in a good spot when Brian Kelly was there. But for that to happen in year three, it's unacceptable. It's embarrassing. And now also you kind of look at Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame differently, and you wonder what direction are they heading to? And they clearly just overlooked an opponent, and you had an emotional high and then an all-time dud the following week.
Zach Gelb with us. Again, college football. What were your thoughts about Texas in Ann Arbor? All of us discussed that we thought that Texas was going to be too much, a very dominant win for Steve Sarkisian.
I thought Texas was going to win the game. I didn't think it was going to be a big-time blowout, but no one really thought Michigan was going to win. That is Texas showing right now they're the second best team in the country. Georgia is the best team in the country and the preeminent team in the country. I know they play coming up in the middle of October, and that's going to be on paper right now the game of the year in college football. But it's crazy what Sark has done. I know we always joked with Sam Ehlinger and Texas, we're back. But last year, they get to the college football playoff. And here's the craziest part for Texas. I know we've seen Arch Manning a little bit, but Arch Manning hasn't even been the starter yet. And Quinn Ewers has done wonders with Texas. And I always thought Texas wasn't really going to get humming until you saw Arch Manning take over. And I thought they were going to win the Big 12 last year. But right now, this is a program that's humming, and they're clicking on all cylinders. And that was a championship performance that they put on display where we knew they were better than Michigan, but to just bludgeon Michigan and not even make that a game is something that what championship teams really aspire and do.
Zach, A&M goes and plays at Florida this week. Billy Napier is under fire like no other coach in the country. Now, DJ Lagway made his debut against Samford last week. Billy Napier says he plans to use Mertz and Lagway when Mertz is out of the protocol, which seems like he's being loyal to Graham Mertz. But does he not need to be loyal to the Gators right now and say, like, look, if Lagway, he threw for 400 yards against Samford. If he throws for 250 against the A&M defense, is pretty darn good. Like, doesn't that mean you got to leave him in for the rest of the time?
I would agree with you. And Billy Napier shouldn't try to be loyal to anybody, because if he is, all I will say is look at Lincoln Riley last year. He was loyal to Grinch. Everyone knew that shouldn't happen for the start of the season, and it cost him. Now, it's not going to cost Lincoln Riley his job. USC has turned it around this year. But in terms of Billy Napier, I would be shocked, absolutely shocked at the end of the year if Billy Napier makes it through the season. I think he'll actually be fired before the end of the season, right towards the end of the season. And then, right, there's going to be a ton of names that we speculate from that job. So I would not have any past loyalties playing a factor in that decision.
What do you think of how this season has begun? 6 of the 7 teams in the top 25 are SEC. There might be 1 or 2 that are in there because of the fumes of being a part of the SEC, and also from what they did a year ago. Do you feel like that's going to just be the common theme this year, or will that eventually be broken up?
I think in most years when you look at the 12 teams of the college football playoff, so obviously there's 5 spots reserved for the conference champions. I think for the other 7 spots, in most years it's going to be 3 out of those 7 to the Big Ten, 3 out of those 7 also going to the SEC for the final 7. That last spot reserved for Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame may not make the college football playoff this year because I don't even know how to evaluate Notre Dame after they've lost to NIU. But I think the bigger point here is, sure, for like the little guy, all right, now you got a spot into the college football playoff. The ACC, they're not sending 2 teams this year. I think the Big 12 is a really good conference, and I think the Big 12 is better than the ACC, but I don't think 2 Big 12 teams are going to get in. The only way that happens is if, let's just say, there's like a Big 12 team like TCU from a few years ago that loses in their conference championship game, and then you're going to then put that winner of the Big 12 championship in and probably still find the spot for TCU. So that could happen where you get 2 teams from either the Big 12 or the ACC in a 12-team format. But I think there's a bigger point here. There's not a lot of teams that I feel like can win a national championship. So we've expanded to 12 teams, but I still feel like it's the same of the last few years where you only look at it and be like, okay, 4 to 6 teams max you feel can actually win a national championship, if that.
Yeah, Zach, I think we're probably 5 years away from seeing any kind of parity that drips down enough to where it's more than that, where you have teams that, are maybe the second team of the Big 12 or the ACC, if that even is the same way in 5 years, that are capable of winning those national championships outside of, oh my God, somebody beat Georgia. Like, how did that happen? And then the whole thing opens up.
No, yeah, it's definitely a fair point. And also, let's be real, guys, it's inevitable. When you go from 4 to 12, that means since they made that drastic of a jump already, in future years, and it's already been discussed, they're going to go to more and more teams. And that will then open up a spot for some of these other conferences that aren't the Big Ten or the SEC to feel like, okay, in most years we could get 2 teams in from the ACC and 2 teams in from the Big 12, depending on whatever number they expand to.
Memphis and Florida State. We know where Florida State is. Maybe we don't. Memphis is pretty good, Zach.
Yeah.
They are a nice football team. And, boy, Mike Norvell and company, they just need to win a game.
Yeah, and Mike Norvell obviously used to coach at Memphis. But, hey, it goes without being said, this is a must-win game for Florida State. But it feels like for this year, the Florida State program is broken. So can they win? Yes. Am I going to sit here and tell you they're definitely going to win? No, I'm not, because Memphis has the look of that team that could be a conference champion to get into the college football playoff for that 5th conference championship spot. You know, Boise State also had a good showing up against Oregon, where quite frankly, they probably should have won the game. And then you look at Liberty's schedule, it sets up favorably for Liberty as well.
Zach, thank you very much. Thank you so much. We'll get into the NFL a little bit with you next week, but also always college football with you on Wednesdays. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thank you.
Zach Gelb with us again on the Infinity Sports Network on many things college football.